Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first session of our Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Monthly Exchange Webinar series. I'm Dr. Annette Kendall. I'm the University of Missouri Extension State Specialist in Rural Economic Development and Innovation Strategy. And I'm thrilled to begin this exciting journey with you as we bookend our months with knowledge and resources aimed at facilitating rural economic development through entrepreneurship. The CEC webinar series is designed to provide valuable insights, expert speakers, and practical strategies to support your efforts in driving entrepreneurship and fostering economic growth in Missouri's rural communities. We are here to equip you, our economic development professionals, policymakers, community leaders, entrepreneurs, people passionate about advocating for rural prosperity with the tools and knowledge needed to make a meaningful impact in your jobs and communities. So before we dive into today's content, I'd like to start with a quick activity to close out the month of May, to bookend May. So question for you all, in the spirit of connection, will you share in the chat, please, what is one successful strategy or initiative you have learned about this month in May that is helping drive economic growth in your rural community? This could be anything from a local business collaboration to a community event or a particular resource that's making a significant difference. So please take a moment to post your answers. Your responses are valuable and can provide inspiration and ideas to fellow audience members. And it could be that you know of a resource or have heard of a program that many others haven't heard of and would be really interested in. And feel free to put the links in the chat as well. Yes, John, that's right. We have everybody on mute for the webinar just because we have so many people, but please feel free to type your response in the chat. And also feel free to introduce yourself and who you're representing and any programs that you might yourself run. So I'm going to move on to the main event. We have had a last-minute change today, and we have the opportunity to hear from Stacy Lane from Codefi in place of Dr. James Stapleton. We will hold a webinar with Dr. James Stapleton at a later date, but we are very excited to hear from Stacy today. First, though, we're honoured to have Mark Wallace from Codefi as our guest host for today's webinar. Mark has spent the last several years enhancing the Ozarks through economic and workforce development. He has led efforts at local, regional, and state levels to build and implement programs aimed at transforming communities through greater access to resources, proven to incite sustainable socio-economic progress. So please join me in welcoming Mark Wallace, who will introduce today's distinguished speaker, Stacy Lane.
Yes, thank you, Annette. And I really appreciate you inviting us to come and be part of the inaugural webinar for this series here. For the room, I've had the opportunity over the last couple of months to chat a little bit with Dr. Kendall here and there, and I've really appreciated the thoughtfulness and the access to resources and the sharing of expertise in economic development, especially in rural communities, that she and her team have been able to provide. And I look forward to more collaboration in the future. But to the issue at hand, I am pleased to introduce Stacey Dohogne Lane, who is the Youth Coding League Director at Codefi and runs this competitive, fully packaged team sport designed to teach all middle school and junior high students how to code and set them up on a path to the highest paying occupations in the world. She's a Cape Girardeau native and a SEMO grad. She serves on the Cape Girardeau Public Library Board of Trustees and has served on the Friends of the Cape Girardeau Public Library Board and with Hand to Hold, a nonprofit group providing support to NICU families. Stacy. And I believe we need to unmute Stacy, Dr. Kendall. There we are.
Thanks, Dr. Kendall. And thank you everyone so much. This was a last minute change for my team as well. So thank you for bearing with me. I'm really excited to visit with you all today, and I'm even more excited to meet you in person when I'm at the conference this September. Dr. Kendall was telling me all about the format, and it just seems so unique and fresh, and I'm really looking forward to it. So hi, my name is Stacy. I work at Codefi, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. So we're working in several different directions to improve economic vitality. If you wouldn't mind kicking us over to slide 2, Mark, thank you. We are working on improving economic vitality in a couple of different directions, probably more than a couple, to be honest with you. We've got our tech startup support programs, and at the end of this call, Mark and I and my teammates in the chat would be so happy to connect you with the right teammates for all of these different programs. So if anything really kind of grabs you, hold that thought. We'd love to connect you with the right folks for that. So we have a lot of tech startup support right now. We've got our Bounce My Big Idea program. Folks take their idea and really develop it into a viable business. From there, they can graduate into our 120-day tech startup program. Then we've got our pre-accelerator program, our full-on accelerator program. Something that Dr. Stapleton has really noticed is that there's a big gap in venture fund startup funding in Missouri, especially rural Missouri. So he's been working really hard to develop the Innovate SOMO Fund to help close that startup funding gap here in the Show Me State. In addition to those startup and venture capital areas, we also have our adult digital upskilling initiatives, primarily with Code Labs. I was just at the graduation here in Cape Girardeau last night, and it was such a vitamin shot in the arm to see all of these really proud graduates who have worked so hard over the space of 24 weeks, in addition to having full-time family lives, full-time jobs, to learn this brand new skill to break into the tech industry. So that's our adult digital upskilling Code Labs program, and we have applications open for that now. And then in addition to our adult digital upskilling initiatives, we also have the youth education component, which is kind of my area of expertise within the Codefi ecosystem. So that's a little bit about the broad portfolio of what Codefi is doing to improve economic vitality in rural communities. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit before we go any further about why we all feel so convicted to do the work that we do. So we can bump it to the next slide with that great graph, Mark. So as you can see here, this is a great piece from the Center on Rural Innovation's Rural Aperture 4-part project that they've put together, and they've done an amazing job of building this narrative about how the rise of the digital economy has really accelerated some longstanding historic economic inequities between rural and non-rural communities. You can see on their beautiful graph that rural employment is a lot more concentrated in lower wage percentiles than non-rural employment. A part of that is because as traditional rural industries such as agriculture, manufacturing, and mining, these have become less significant contributors to rural employment. Now they account for less than 25%. There hasn't been a corresponding shift to the industries that are growing. So jobs in the tradable services sector, like tech jobs, those are the ones with the highest average earnings, and that's where we're really seeing a lot of growth. So tech jobs are really vital for rural communities. And kind of underpinning all of these statistics and these really real issues, about 80% of counties with long-term persistent poverty are rural. So that's an overwhelming majority. So we have a lot of work to do in this space. We can go to the next slide, please, Mark. Thank you. And so what this looks like in Missouri, the state of the tech sector in Missouri, you can see that for every tech job created, a lot more other jobs, 2.82, are also created. So we need a higher quality and a greater quantity of skilled tech workers right here in the Show Me State. But we also need entrepreneurs to create those jobs. So as you saw a couple slides back, we're trying to do both at Codefi by supporting startups so that they generate jobs, but also meeting their needs for talent with our adult and youth digital upskilling initiatives, kind of getting at it from both ends. So today, I get to share with you how we are really at the very beginning of what that tech talent pipeline looks like with kiddos as young as 5th grade. I've got a little bit of a background in economic development. My last gig was working for the Cape Girardeau Convention and Visitors Bureau. So Chris pulled me over to Codefi to work on building the Youth Coding League, and he sold me on this vision. So that's where I'm going to start with you guys. So Mark, if we could get to the next slide. What if we could get young coders to feel as valued and supported by their communities as the starting quarterback or the head cheerleader feels? What if we could get them walking down the halls of their school or down Main Street in their community, wearing some amazing Youth Coding League gear and being awarded and recognized in a positive way by their community for what they've learned and what they've built using their brains? So it's that feeling that we're always trying to build for the coders that we work with in the Youth Coding League. And it's that vision that sold me hook, line, and sinker on what Chris wanted to build with the Youth Coding League. And I've had the privilege of getting to do so ever since we launched in the fall of 2018. We can go to the next slide, please, Mark. So the Youth Coding League, we really work hard to raise awareness and access to an industry-informed tech education. We do it in a team sports environment because when you're having fun, you're learning more. And we like to work with kids of all levels of academic achievement and ability in 5th through 8th grade. We start in 5th grade because of that pesky middle school cliff. Up until 5th grade, the numbers of young boys and young girls equitably enrolled in STEM disciplines, they're at pace with each other. It's called a middle school cliff because in 5th grade, it goes like this awful thing on a graph that looks like a cliff. So that was why we wanted to start in 5th grade. We think it's so important to get to the young ladies before they start, thinking that this isn't for them. So that's why we start there. And then we know that to be successful in getting the skill set in the hands of the kids who need it the most, we have to make this program complete, fully packaged. And it also has to be rooted in the rural communities that it serves. So we can't come in and just impose something. We want them to be invested in their coders, in their team, just like they would in the Little League team down the street every night. So we built this program to live within organizations and schools in your communities, and it provides a strong introduction for kids to computer science and coding. We can hop on over to the next slide, Mark. Thank you. So more about the practicalities of how the Youth Coding League operates. So I mentioned that it's rooted in communities. We provide the support, the materials, the schedule, the curriculum, everything needed, the training for these teams to be rooted within their communities. And we encourage access to any interested coder. A lot of schools, and I understand why they do this, but a lot of times coding and computer science within a traditional educational environment during the school day can be a bit gatekept by different levels of academic ability or achievement. For example, AP computer science is AP. That's not accessible to every kid who's interested in it. Or you might need a certain GPA or something in order to be able to partake in your school's coding or computer science offerings. So it's really important to us that any kid who's interested is able to access this skill set. Additionally, because we know that a lot of the folks we're working with, whether they're youth librarians or parks and rec coordinators at a community center or deputy juvenile officers who are running a league in their family court building for kids in the foster care system, because we have done that. It was an amazing experience. What they're doing with the Youth Coding League and running the team, it's extra for them. It's full-time for myself and my team. So wherever there's an opportunity for us to fully package this and make their lift lighter, we take it. So teams are meeting every fall and every spring. We kick off our fall 24 season the week of Labor Day. Coders meet as a team at least once a week for an hour and a half to 2 hours. There's a 9-week-long regular season where it's a very focused, structured, they're really building their toolkit of these computer science and coding skills. After that, there's a really fun competitive postseason, which I'll tell you about in a second. And then they're learning those basics of coding and computer science, like I mentioned. Something else that's unique about our program. You do not have to put teachers through expensive professional development or send them somewhere to learn how to code. Nothing wrong with that. But our program, we can train someone to run this within their community within just a couple of hours. So our teachers and the coaches that we work with really appreciate that there's a really low barrier to entry for being able to successfully run a coding league team, and they don't have to know anything about coding or computer science. So the curriculum that we use, and Mark, we could bump to the next one, please. Thank you. We write our own curriculum. We hired a high school coding teacher. She helps us write it and make sure that it's in alignment with all of those really important standards. And we try to inject as much of the real world into these curricula as we possibly can. So what you're seeing is the entry screen for our very first proprietary curriculum that we wrote on entrepreneurship. In this curriculum, not only were the kids learning how to code and the basics of computer science, they were also learning the iterative process. So they learned how to identify a problem and solve it using technology. They learned how to get feedback and how to provide refinements to their product. They learned all kinds of different things. And at the end, they had like a big pitch day project where they pitched their tech idea to a pretend audience on their coding project. While we're doing this too, the kids are coding in Scratch. So this is a block-based programming language. It's a wonderful learning tool because you don't have that frustration factor with the syntax that you might get with HTML or Python. But we are giving them little Easter eggs so that when they do hit high school and if they do continue, a lot of that's going to feel, they're going to be primed for it. For example, if kids want to complete an extra challenge in our curriculum, they have to let us know that they did so by formatting that challenge using HTML formatting. They don't know that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. So we're slowly easing them in to the terminology, the skill set, the attention to detail, as well as what a modern workplace looks like. Additionally, and one last thing about our curriculum before I tell you a little bit more about our program, we like to build in as many real world examples as possible. So we have a curriculum for this fall for our 5th and 6th graders that talks about food. So we talk a lot about agricultural tech throughout that curriculum, and the kids are working on a food tech idea. And we pull in one of our startup founders here in Southeast Missouri, Nathan Holmes with Pump Tracker. So we give the kids an opportunity to learn from startups that are local to them so that they can really see that real world application of this brand new skill set. And we can move on, Mark. Thank you kindly for clicking through those for me. So that's the curriculum that the kids work through in our 9-week-long regular season. As they're working through that, they're getting to build some really creative things in their projects every single week. And then we get to dig into every single project across the league. There's no API to pull. This is a totally manual process. And we score them on their project. So they are competitive from their rural communities and the Show Me State with coders all across the nation. They get to see how their team rankings look every single week. So that hometown competition can live, and they can also see how they rank with coders in Florida or Oregon as well. So they're competitive as part of a team. They're also competitive as an individual coder. This is really great. They can fill out their coder profile throughout the season, keep track of their progress, and show off to their grown-ups all of the progress that they're making. So we love seeing that, not only the resiliency with the kids, but also their confidence grow and build throughout the Youth Coding League. And Mark, we're ready for the postseason slide. Thank you. So after that 9-week-long regular season, where the kids are really focused on learning a brand new skill set through that structured curriculum that prompts them through it, we get to just set them loose in the postseason and just show off what they can do. And we are amazed every single time at the incredible things that the kids put together. These are structured just like an NCAA March Madness bracket. And again, all of the competition is happening online, so no one has to budget for any travel. We have a couple different ways for the kids to win. There's the community favorite division, where their community gets to come out and show their support by voting for them, and the projects with the most votes progress. This has been a really valuable opportunity for partners that we work with, like Crowder College in the southwest part of our state, to get to show their vision and their investment in their area's youth. So we love getting to let our partners also feel really good about the work that they're doing in their community, because they are doing that. They should get to feel that way. There's also the technical merit portion for the kids to win. And this is where we get groups of professional software developers all over the state. I'm always tapping our employer partners from our Code Labs projects to help us out with these and volunteer their time. But I love getting all of these professional programmers into a room, letting them look at these projects, and they are always amazed. So you have these developers who are building really complex, amazing tech, and they are just delighted at what a fifth grader in the boot heel built using block-based programming. So that one's always a really fun one too. We also award the kids big time for their efforts. We outfit them in Youth Coding League jerseys so they can rep their team. And then we also ship prizes directly to their communities for the kids who win in the postseason. The impact of this, I can always tell the partners we work with, here's how many coders you served. Here's what they learned this season. Here's how well they did in the regular season rankings. And all of those things are well and good. But there's a lot about this that's challenging to quantify. For example, we'll hear from coaches that attendance has been a challenge for the student. It's no longer a problem because they don't want to miss coding day. Or kids who have an IEP, and school isn't an easy, necessarily happy place for them, but the Youth Coding League really speaks to how their brain works, and it gives them an opportunity to get positive recognition within the halls of their community. So we joke a lot at work because this is really about making sure that our students have access now to these really critically important future ready skills. But there's also so many amazing character development benefits to inclusion in the Youth Coding League as well. There's something about this program that really kind of gets the kids who can be difficult to engage otherwise. So I love seeing them grow in their confidence and make new friends. So that's a little bit about our program, the why of why we do what we do, and how in my youth education portion of Codefi, I'm doing my best to meet those needs with the help of a really phenomenal team. So that's what I've got today. I'd love to hear what you guys think and answer any questions y'all have.
Yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat section at the bottom of your screen. There's a little chat bubble where you're able to either share resources or provide questions for Stacy and or the CEC team. Be more than happy to field those in a moment. I would like to say, first of all, thank you to the MU Extension team and Stacy for putting this together. Very informative. I'm excited to see the collaboration continuing. And just over the course of the last 24 hours, we've seen quite an expansion in our own network. These networking opportunities continue to be pretty transformative to not only our teams, our individuals, but also our communities. Also, I am a traditional economic developer and a little bit of a data nerd. So when I hear things like tech-based economic development or youth entrepreneurship, I start thinking about the gaps that we've been talking about for the last 4 or so years in depth, but much longer than that in reality in workforce, especially in regards to future-based industry. And when I see things like a 2.82 or 2.83 jobs multiplier in tech positions, and we see the opportunity for high wages being earned in tech jobs in Missouri, and we see a number 2 ranking or so, depending on the year we look at, for statewide gross domestic product in tech industries. I get excited about the prospect of training up those individuals who are going to have learned in the state of Missouri, and then will give back in regards to impact in the state of Missouri, both through their technical expertise in learning these workforce training programs, but also putting them to use in entrepreneurship right at home in rural communities. I do see, it looks like we have Susie Keithley asked, how do kids in small schools find out about this? Our school is under 300 total. It's a great question. I'd love to give that over to Stacy.
We're at lots of tiny schools, so we'd love to be at yours. If you would be okay to do a warm intro email between myself and your school's leadership, hey, I heard about this cool new program. I think our students could really benefit. Here's Stacy who can tell you more. I can take it from there. We also have different ways we can kind of help ease that funding burden for schools. So yeah, just connect us with your school and we'll take it from there. Something else too we're launching for this fall that we've never done before, so we're testing it, is for really tiny communities where a parent might really want to use Coding League for their kiddo, but there is no community team. So we're launching for the first time this fall a free agent coder offering where coders can compete remotely from their communities. We'll randomly assign them to another team of other remote coders, and then we're still finessing how we can plug them in a safe, adult, moderated way to the other coders on their remote team. But that is launching this fall, and we're really excited to offer that because we hear every year, hey, I can't get my school to have a team, but my kid really wants to participate. So we're excited for that free agent coder offering. So yes, Susan, if you feel comfortable doing an intro email between myself and your school leaders, I would love to visit with them more and see what we can do to make it happen.
Amazing. It looks like from Shannon Walton, would our community need to train someone to put on the program, or do you provide a trained professional to put on the program?
Great question. These teams are rooted within your communities. So we will train someone in your community to be your youth coding league coach. It can be a lot of different people. I was talking to a Code Labs family member last night who offered to coach it at her child's school. It can be as simple as that. A lot of times we'll work with schools where we can do this within the teacher contract hours really easily so that they don't have to give any extra time, because I know that's a big deal for educators right now. We've also worked with youth librarians, deputy juvenile officers, all kinds of different folks. We can train people quickly and easily. And then beyond that training, we provide absolute full wraparound holistic support all season long to make sure that our coaches feel empowered to set their coders up for success.
And kind of a follow-up to that question, Stacy, do code coaches need any background in coding or tech at all?
Nope, they don't. And I will even prove that because I have no background in coding, yet I run this program. So yes, that can absolutely, they do not need a background. Susie, we have successfully worked, I'm sorry, Susie asked about doing homeschooling groups. We've worked with homeschooling groups in the past, absolutely. And I think that free agent coder offering that we're launching this fall for individual coders would probably be a really great fit for them.
A question from Brittany Bates with the Mount Vernon Chamber. Hi, Brittany. Is there financial investment required for the YCL?
There is. I wish we could do this for free, but we got to keep the lights on. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, just like a lot of you folks. So we basically just charge enough to keep our lights on and pay our staff, which is just myself and my teammate, Liza. For one team of 5th and 6th graders for one season, that cost would be $2,500. Half of that's invested back in your community. We have a $600 stipend reserved for that coach. We gear the kids up in youth coding league gear, all the prizes and the competitive element. We've never raised our prices since we started the program, and we work really hard to just keep streamlining as we grow to make sure we don't have to add staff and add more cost to that program. We do have some funding mechanisms that can help, different funding structures that can also help. For example, we work with the Lutheran Elementary School Association out of St. Louis. They have 32 member schools. They've got some donors who have given to a STEM fund for them. So any school in their umbrella who wants a youth coding league team, that organization, Lisa, pays about 1/3 of their cost. We can do that, no problem. Right now, we also have Youth Opportunity Program tax credits. So if you have a donor in your community who wants to make sure that your area has a youth coding league team, you can give those dollars through that YOP program, get a 50% tax credit back from the state for your Missouri tax liabilities, and then we can guarantee you that those dollars will stay local to you. So I'm also always out there trying to find grants, keeping a list of teams that need funding for them to be able to participate. So I'm working on a weekly basis to try to meet their funding needs wherever I can by seeking grants out too.
So that being said, you do not have to find the resources or the human capital or really any of those details ahead of having a conversation and exploring with the Youth Coding League team. We are more than happy to take on the brunt share, and by we, I mean Stacy and her amazing team are happy to take on the brunt share of the labor in making sure Youth Coding League is accessible to as many students as are interested. And we're seeing everywhere we launch, there is continued interest no matter what resources are available to continue. So our ultimate goal is to serve students where they are in rural communities, not just in Missouri, but around the country.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Mark, because I always hate when someone just doesn't even start the conversation. I love getting on a call with someone and just troubleshooting. How can we make this happen? So I'm really thankful that you mentioned that, Mark. You're exactly right. We love to, think outside the box to make it work for the kids.
Of course. And Charlie, I see your question that just came through. Will you be able to tap into state digital equity capacity funds to expand outreach, particularly to underserved audiences, which is our wheelhouse 100% of the time? Talking about how I believe our state's digital equity plan was recently improved and will provide resources potentially serving this program. So, Stacy, do we have plans to engage with that resource yet?
Not yet, but we should make them, Mark. Let's add a to-do list for that.
And to that point, we're always talking with local stakeholders and resource partners, as we tend to call them, other folks who have a mission aligned or at least parallel to our mission, both as the Youth Coding League team and Codefi in general, in order to dream up new programs and new ways of delivering old programs, making sure that not only do we have programs that solve for the right issues, but they're accessible to every community as well. So if you find that one of our programs at Codefi, whether it's Youth Coding League or a startup program, an adult training program, or otherwise, has felt inaccessible at the local level, we're more than happy to have a conversation about that as well, and have absolutely changed the way we do things on the spot. Any other questions at all? I'm very happy to take one or two more. We had the allotted time, but I'm also happy, if not, to kick it over. It looks like Tori asked about whether or not any tech VC firms like Plug and Play have any dollars set aside for youth tech entrepreneurship. And to that point, I'd like to throw Invest Somo in the mix there as well. We have a co-investment fund that was just recently launched that you can find information about on codifiworks.com. But to that point, Stacy, are there any VC firms in the state or around the country who have dollars set aside for this?
I hope so. Not that I'm personally aware of. So if anyone has a contact that they're willing to share, please do.
Yeah, and I saw Brittany was talking a bit about the manufacturers meeting hosted by the Missouri Chamber, where they spoke to a lack of automation and AI integration in the manufacturing space, where I talked about how significant the GDP effect of the tech industry is for the state of Missouri as a whole. Really only outdone by manufacturing, which we do spend a bit of time talking about in our state if you've been around long. But you're exactly right. Finding those ways to incorporate a younger workforce in existing Missouri industry, being talent retention, is one of our core tenets of our tech education programs. In addition to that, looks like there's a question of whether or not we could find a way to incorporate local business owners, especially in manufacturing, to sponsor teams and to train up a skilled workforce. Could you speak a little bit to sponsored teams and or youth opportunity tax credits?
Absolutely. It's just us here in Cape Girardeau running this. So like you guys, we really can be flexible to meet the needs of the folks that we want to serve. So we have a lot of different ways we can, think creatively about how to make sure teams are funded in communities. Let's do some wide scale teams that look like a little league team with the name of that manufacturer printed on the back of their jersey. We can absolutely do that. We can do that on a bespoke case by case basis, no problem. I think it can be really impactful for these businesses to really get to showcase the visionary investment that they're making in their areas, young people. We've got a partners page set up. We have a way to recognize who's supporting that team on their team page. Whenever those teams compete in the postseason, we're able to showcase that on the graphics. When we announce our winners in the video at the end, we always make sure to let folks know which teams are supported by whom. So absolutely, there are so many ways to incorporate those local business owners and their team sponsorships in the Youth Coding League.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Stacy, and thank you for hosting us, Dr. Kendall and team. I'd like to kick it back over to you to talk a little bit about how we might be able to, and present your question as well, but how everyone can get a hold of your team, of our team, and what we can expect in September in Fulton. Dr. Kendall.
Here we go. Sorry, I have so many buttons and things that I'm having to push. Multitasking is not my forte at the best of times. I did have a question. So I get a lot of people and students at the university who have ideas for apps, but they don't have any coding experience. They may be looking for a coder. Is this a pipeline to hire a coder to work on just a really basic wireframe for an app that then that student could use to enter pitch competitions, or an adult, you
know? We'd love to support, you know, kids taking what they've learned in the Youth Coding League and moving forward with it, absolutely. But right now, our curriculum is set up to work primarily within Scratch. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. And to build onto that, Youth Coding League is absolutely part of our talent development pipeline, which also includes adult workforce training programs that do exactly what you're speaking to. We're able to plug in Code Labs students and graduates. So while they're in the program, and in addition, after they've already graduated, to startups around the state of Missouri. So they're learning valuable skills. They're getting paid to build software, brand new products, expand their own portfolio, earn a very solid livable wage while they're being trained in a very important skill set for future industry, while supporting Missouri entrepreneurs. So this is an entire ecosystem that does play back into itself. Youth Coding League just happens to be the earliest introduction to that, being fifth graders.
Great. Thanks for that, Mark. Yeah, I did put in the chat, you know, I wish this existed when I was at school. I love the idea that, you know, I could have been into coding and been as popular as the football team, right? With my jersey, high-fiving everyone in the hallways at school. So I love this whole concept. I want to say thank you, Stacy, for stepping in at the last minute and delivering such an insightful and inspiring presentation. I like all of us on this call here, we are very passionate about having an impact on the communities that we serve, and helping the youth is definitely dear to our hearts. So, Stacy, your expertise and your dedication to fostering economic prosperity in rural areas through the Youth Coding League is truly invaluable. And I know it takes a lot of time and effort. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. And hey, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, right?
That is right. Yep. You're absolutely correct. So as I said, yes, Stacy will be speaking at our CEC conference that is scheduled for 17th to the 19th of September in Fulton, Missouri this year. And so that would be a really good opportunity to attend her session and potentially speak with her in person about your own local high schools and opportunities for the Youth Coding League to partner in your area. Thank you also to all of our attendees for joining us today. Thank you for your comments and those resources that you put in the chat. It's always good to hear what's going on throughout the state. And that makes these sessions even more enriching. If you have any additional questions or would like to continue the conversation with Stacy or Mark or the team, contact them through the information provided in the chat. I think I see it. There you are. I knew you'd be onto that there, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for helping us put this together. It's been a great partnership between CEC and Codefi so far. Codefi is one of our partners for the CEC conference in September, and we're really looking forward to having them deliver some sessions on other parts of their programs at that conference. And then our next CEC Monthly Exchange webinar takes place at 1:30 p.m. on the first Friday in June. So remember, these webinars are designed to bookend your months. So Friday, June 7th, a week from today, we are going to be having Desma Dietz, the CEO of Venture Lab, which is another youth program, national youth program. She's going to speak. We look forward to seeing you there. Have a wonderful Friday, everyone, and a great weekend ahead.